Welcome. We should be live.
Awesome. Welcome to the Stream of Truth. I am Dr. Tassel of Faith Shamebrook.
And I'm Sean Kelly. I think we I noticed this stream. I think it might have glitched out again. We'll see how it went. I think it did that thing where it seems to capture a little bit before we go live sometimes. I'm not sure why it's doing that. So apologies if it did that, but we'll see what happens. But
Okay.
we're really excited today. We've got
Awesome.
a
And we're
big thing we're
live right
bringing.
now.
We are live. We are live. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we are live. I was just apologizing to people in case it was a bit weird there. I'm not sure what was happening or not, if they saw it.
Okay. So today is a really big day for you and I. We are talking about basically a model of communication that we have come up with. I want to say through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah,
And
that's a
we
good way to put it.
in the petri dish of our own relationship, and then drawing upon, for me, a lot of my clinical experience as a uh, holding a doctorate in marriage and family therapy, and so much work with couples over the years, and then just my personal experiences in relationship, including our relationship, as well as my spiritual experiences.
Yeah. I think for me at least as well, I've thought about this stuff a lot over my life. A lot of these. I think early on, I started to recognize that communication was probably the biggest problem between people. And I didn't know any way to really get around that. I think that's part of what this is sort of a culmination of a lot of that inner seeking to try to understand it. And then also, your experience with your education and then clients. And then, I guess I think too, as we start to open I guess, ourselves up to spirituality and things, we start to develop these different concepts. And so I think that's always what I was sort of missing about it, was I was approaching the entire thing from a sort of different, consciousness. And so I think what we want to try and do is elevate the consciousness that is observing the relationship itself, and so that we can have uh, basically more harmonious interactions more consistently, I think.
Yes. I really can't think of anything that is more important between humans than the way they communicate with each other and the tools they have at their disposal to help facilitate just the most conscious, peaceful, solution oriented way of communicating possible. So to me, I just feel this is so important for the world. And I think if we really think about it, almost any conflict, whether it's between people or institutions or nations at war, is just really based upon maybe communication not really going so well. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Exactly.
just can't be overemphasized how crucial communication is to all of our relationships on the micro and macro scale. So maybe we can just first start out. So we're calling this set of tools the Namaste Method. And the reason we chose the word namaste is we both really love the meaning of namaste, meaning basically the light in me honors, sees the light in you.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea being when we're in a namaste connection, both of us are in a higher consciousness. We're both more in our God self, our higher self, our we still, of course, are embodying our human self, but we're able to just be at that higher level of seeing things. So that's really, I would say, the underpinning, the foundation of this whole method is to somewhat just be at this highest level of consciousness that we can during our interactions with other people. And not to say that we will always be there at all. I know that I am not in any way
Yeah.
always, but just to, we can slip out of it and come back to it, slip out of it and come back to it.
Yeah.
And I think what we talked about is that really the purpose, the focus of this whole method is to really expand the potentials of how people can talk to each other, how they can interact with each other, expand the potentials of how we even view relationship, and expand the potential of how we view the whole experience of the relationship, as really just a vehicle for our growth, our personal growth, and if we resonate with it, our spiritual growth as well.
Yes. Yes. And I think one of the things that we noticed is that a lot of us tend to view relationships as sort of transactional, or as basically these people will give me things, like give me safety or comfort or whatever it is. And so then we start to sort of frame everything around that. And then if we're not getting those things, then we start to think the other person's maybe not delivering. They're not holding up their end of the bargain, that type of thing, even though this bargain usually is never totally discussed. It's like it's expectations, really. And so I think what we're trying to do is, with the reason we called it the Namaste Method, is because we're trying to come at it from a unified thing. Like we're together in this conversation seeking the same goal, which is not to win over the other, or not to win for the sake of winning or to satiate some aspect of myself. The goal being to harmonize, or to find the highest and best pathway for both, and taking both experiences into account, and then sort of coming at it from that approach, instead of coming at it from, I need this, I want this, I need this, here's how you can meet my needs. That information can be helpful at times, and it can be important to ask these questions sometimes. How can I help you? But it's one thing for your partner to say, how may I help you, and another for the partner to say to you, here's how you can help me. There's very different energies involved in that, right? The partner saying, here's how you can help me, is kind of being a little like, serve me. And the other person may not take as kindly to that. And so it approaching it from that way sets up a sort of opposition type of energy. And yeah, I think we're trying to navigate that into a more unified approach.
Yes, absolutely. That, first of all, we're teammates in the relationship and whatever we're traversing through. And then another piece is that we're sovereign, that we take responsibility for our own emotions, our own wounds, our own path, and then coming together as these two sovereign beings to harmonize on the best path possible. And we've talked about this a lot, that the current relationship models that I've used them in my own practices with clients, especially more in the beginning of my career, are, I would say, a lot about empowerment, which is great and which is such a necessary step on this whole path. So just first learning to even tune in to one's perceived needs, and to use our voice to communicate those needs to the people we're in relationship with. And then another really essential piece in these more mainstream therapy models is active listening.
Yeah.
Which is so important, and which has helped you and I a lot in our relationship. So
and even learning just to honor our feelings as well, like
yes,
that type of thing. There's a whole bunch of things in a lot of these models that are great.
Yes, yes.
So
And we're not in any way suggesting losing those pieces, but having those pieces there and then incorporating a lot of other pieces as well. So there's a lot going on in this orientation.
yeah,
Yeah, just to like be really specific, I would say most mainstream relational couples models are about each person being empowered and being in touch with their perceived needs and their feelings, and then communicating that back and forth. And as you said, it can end up feeling a bit transactional. Like, I'm over here, these are my feelings and my needs. Can you meet them? And can I do the same for you? And then if we can't, well, then I guess it just doesn't work, is, I would say, more the mainstream relational model.
yeah,
And what we're talking about in the Namaste model is there are aspects of that. It's not that like completely goes away, but there's pieces of that, but it's a different orientation. It's an orientation of looking at relationship as the vehicle for your personal and potentially spiritual growth. And that you are a team in this, and you are going down this path together.
yeah. And a lot of it too is about assessing your own discomfort and really looking at what you perceive your needs are, and just being really honest and self-reflective about that. A lot of times we have needs that are not, they're kind of born out of some of our traumas and our stories and stuff. And so really what we do is we create this need so that we can avoid experiencing that trauma come up again. But usually if we can notice the trauma and sort of heal that part, and by basically allowing that experience to come back in, and then to re-experience it with a new sort of lens and a new perspective, we can, release that thing as a need entirely and realize that, we were just kind of trying to avoid something a little bit uncomfortable. And what one of the things that we'll try to teach is how to discern when to accept and when to back away, and how that feels. Because it can be really easy for it to sound like we're saying blanket acceptance of all that anyone ever does.
Right.
It can sound like we're just ignoring things that we find unsettling, and that's not what we're suggesting. So
and what we're saying is we do the inner work first.
Right.
We go within first. So I would say in the more mainstream relational couples models, it's about, okay, I feel something and I'm going to communicate it to you pretty immediately, back and forth. And what we're saying is the relationship is going to be catalytic. It is going to bring into you situations that are going to feel uncomfortable. And this is for our growth. This is so that we can experience these situations, which often are connected to other situations in this lifetime, or if it's resonant with you, even in other lifetimes, bringing up energies and feelings that we haven't really fully integrated.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're saying is just go within first when you feel discomfort and sort of work with it. And if after a bit, it still feels like something important to talk about with your partner, great.
Yeah.
But we look within first, and we realize the catalyst is ultimately for our own highest and best.
And most of us on that spiritual pathway have experienced the experience of being reactionary, right? Acting out in our emotion, which being tied in some type of story or narrative and being upset, acting out, and then upon reflection, realizing, oh, I was I was a little bit confused there. Like, clearly I misunderstood everything. I created a bit of a thing that wasn't really happening. Oh, interesting. So now I'll go back and we'll re-talk about it, and I'll approach it from the different perspective where I've gotten some clarity. And so what we're saying is, instead of going that way, turn within first.
Yeah.
And try to go through that part of it first, the self-assessment first. And we usually do like a really brief self-assessment, but it's almost like we're usually already sort of in the energy of I'm upset and here's how I'm going to justify it. And so we have to step a little out of it a bit to be able to look at it a little more objectively, because the mind will throw tons of reasons at us to be upset that objectively in our experience we can say, yes, this seems to have occurred to us, right? That was our experience. So we get lots of evidence that there's lots of reasons to be upset at others or whatever. And so what we're talking about is cultivating a habitual, oh, I'm upset at them. That means I should sit with this in myself first for a while, probably, to see, get an idea of what the hell's going on, right?
Yes. And of course, our thinking mind wants to jump out of our discomfort, to jump out of our pain, and distract ourselves in a way by, well, I really need to talk to him about this, and look what he did.
Yeah.
And to me, it's sort of a warning sign. If I feel I really need to talk to you about something, that to me is a sign, actually, I really need to sit with some stuff first.
That's a good point.
Right? If you feel like I really need to text this to her or talk to him, most likely you're in some discomfort.
Yep.
And that's like a sign to just sit with some things yourself.
That's a great point.
Maybe would it be okay if maybe we could each give a specific example of what we're talking about, where we were in a story and we were kind of projecting maybe on the other person, and then when we sat with it, we realized, oh wait, it's some of my own stuff there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I've got one that I could use.
Okay. Do you want to go first, and then I'll share one too?
Sure. And hopefully you're okay with this example. We didn't pre-clear these or anything with each other, but
yeah, anything's fine.
Early on when I was quitting smoking, so I was irritated and agitated. That's the reason I say that, is I'm like making an excuse for myself a little bit. We were talking about your hair, and I had offered some stuff to you that I was thinking. I was just trying to help, but I was offering some stuff that I was thinking, and you were like, basically, that does not feel good at all. I don't like this at all. I feel much worse after hearing this stuff. And then you went on to say things like, it would have been my preference for you to say this or this or this. And then I sort of snapped at you and said, why don't you just write me a script? Yeah. Like, just you write me a script and then I'll just read that. Right. And so in that moment, it was a very snarky response. You were going through an emotional time as well with it. And it was a very snarky, sarcastic response. The reason that I got so triggered is because a lot of my life I've spent feeling like, whether it was true or not, I'm not sure anymore, but feeling like people were trying to craft my speech and tell me what I can and cannot say, and basically control me through my expression, right? Control my expression. And I experienced it so much from people, and I observe it so much in society. It's a thing that I see so clearly when people are doing it, that like I even see when people are doing it without even really realizing they're doing it, when they're basically being judgmental through their expression without necessarily even being conscious of it. And I see that really clearly. So, and I see it when I do it myself as well, a lot of the time. So I see that picture, that story or narrative very, very clearly. And so in my sort of agitated, irritated state, I was kind of, I was frustrated basically as well, that I was trying to serve and I failed. So I was kind of angry with myself and took it out on Tassel as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in this one for me. But the primary driver of all of it was that she's dictating to me how to speak, and this is a bad thing because blah, 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 blah. She wasn't dictating to me how to speak. She was just sharing her preference because what I had just said was upsetting. So she was trying to help correct a little bit because what I was saying was feeling very bad. And she was not interested in that moment in exploring further depth of bad feeling. She's already feeling quite bad. And so, of course, she's not really interested in being pulled further into other things that may be true, right? Like they may be things that are true or whatever. They may be like whatever, or may not, but it's just not the right time for it. And she was basically just trying to say that and then offering like suggestions on how something a little bit more, or how I could better hold space with that, which is a particular thing that I'm trying to learn, is how to hold space better instead of offering. I tend to just offer wisdoms or try. That's what I'm like, oh, well, I could just teach this and then they'll go, oh, okay, fixed. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And I always forget. That. Constantly forget that. I'm getting better and better, but...
Yeah, not always, yeah.
Right. But yeah, I realized I was saying, a story, right? It's so easy to get caught up in stories. It's so our whole personality is a story, right? So everything we think and do is different stories. So it's more about noticing the stories that don't align and stuff. And so this was a story that... it's important to me that I continue to be aware of it, because it's important to me to be one of those individuals who, when someone does that, when they're doing it in a way that feels bad to me, that I let them know that they're pushing against my sovereignty in my expression. It seems important to me to stand that ground, that I will say and do as I do, and your sensitivities are yours. Now, I need to balance this with compassion and love and understanding as well around what other people are going through and these types of things. So I don't say it as in, I don't care, I'm indifferent. It's not like that at all. It's about being caring and being compassionate, but also stepping away from it, not taking accountability for how other people are sensitive, that their experience is theirs. So it's just like that. But anyway, so that was the story, and that was sort of, it's a big story that I have. It's something that's gone on a lot. I can get in conflict with people a lot about this. And it was, I just, bleh, it's like verbal diarrhea, right? It's just, bleh. And then, you were like, you were hurt by that, right? And then I immediately was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then I think I apologized basically right away, or within a few minutes or something, and came and gave you a hug and stuff. And
Yes.
So we can fall into these little things really, really easily. And that was my example.
Yes, that's a great example. And I'll share sort of a parallel example on my side of verbal diarrhea of my own stuff. Maybe a month ago or so, we had this situation where we had planned that you were going to call me on a Saturday night when I was back in Nashville. You were in Canada and you had your kids over the weekend. And it got really late on this particular Saturday night, and you hadn't called. and I started to feel sad, and I would say I started to feel unresponded to. And I think I texted you something like, "Oh, I'm going to go to bed now. I'm a bit sad. I wish we had talked," something like that. And then you texted back something like, "Oh, I didn't realize how late it was. I was waiting for my older son to go to bed so we could talk." Um, and you might have said like, "I'm sorry. I'm not sure." But
I said that I wanted to talk earlier, but decided to wait till all the kids were asleep so that we would have more time.
right.
That's, I think, what I said. Something very similar to that.
So you said something that was fine and nice, but me, I was coming from a wound. When I read your response to me, it was filtered through my own old stories and my own wounds of people, my perception that of people putting other people before me, of not responding to me, of me just not mattering, me maybe even feeling invisible. And these were all things that I felt in my childhood and throughout my life. So I went into my own deep, dark story about all of that. And then I basically, I'm laughing because it was awful. I tend to laugh about things. I don't know why. But I proceeded to just text you a lot around all of this. And I made all these assumptions about your behavior and your intentions, and basically saying like, I'm not sure that you have space for me in your life. And I went on and on and on. Just, I went so deep into my story and just texting you all of this. And then you woke up the next day to all these texts. And I'm sure it was really disturbing and was not resonant with where you were coming from. And then we had a really difficult interaction after that. So, okay, that was just a situation I never want to repeat again. And when I look back, what I would do differently now is, okay, I was in discomfort and I was having wounds coming up, and I had this urge to text you, which I didn't end up texting you. But if that happens again, I want to just sit in my discomfort and in my pain and just let it move through me and see what's there. And I'm sure if I'd done that night, I'm sure I would have been really led by my higher self to these other experiences in my past where I felt like that. And then I would have just been able to clear it and come back to my center. And maybe I would talk to you about it or not, but I might not even have had to talk to you about it at all. And so I think one of the big points we're saying in these two examples that we've given is that it's very easy if one person is uncomfortable to immediately want the other person to change. Like for you, part of you might have wanted me, well, never tell me how to talk, Tassel, or don't give me these types of suggestions because it's bringing up stuff for me. And for me, I might say like, don't ever put someone ahead of me, or I don't know, whatever Band-Aid I might want to put on it or something. And what we're saying is this could even be thought of as like emotional codependency, that you need to act in a certain way so that I don't feel discomfort. Mm-hmm. And what we're really saying, a big part of this model that we've been practicing ourselves is let the discomfort come up.
Yeah.
Just get all into it, marinate into it, see what's there, see what past situations maybe it's bringing up for you, and let it move through you. And
I think this experience that you just mentioned too, I hope you don't mind me sharing, is we noticed that what really, really seems to matter is what people's intentions are around what's occurred, and what actually, like, objectively, sort of, without all the story, what happened, and trying to know. I think we noticed that like in both of our cases, we both, sort of started to presume a bunch of stuff, right?
Yes, exactly.
And presuming stuff, sometimes you're right? But often you're just kind of creating a bad experience for yourself. But the reason you're doing that is because it needs to be explored, right? So try to remember that it's okay that without these narratives, without misunderstanding, there's no opportunity for understanding to occur. There's no experience. Without any confusion, there's no experience. So you need to do these things. And so it's important to like let yourself off the hook. But once you start to notice this, then we can like realize that more, if Tassel was more aware of what I was intending through this, like my true feelings of intention, which was trying to maximize my communication with her, not pull away at all or place other priorities or anything, then she wouldn't have experienced the issues. The issue is that we don't know what anyone's doing. So in our communication, it becomes very important that we notice when we are observing our own story, which is, and the easiest way to quickly identify that is like if somebody messages you or says something and it feels bad, there's a story here. And now then it just becomes a sort of, a decision of how you want to react and take, you've engaged with this story before and you had experience, but now it's a new opportunity to look at the lesson that you last time went through and learned whatever you learned. You're going to look at it again from the new lens of your higher consciousness perspective and try to heal any distortions that remain. And that's why all these stories always cycle, so we can heal distortion. Sometimes we heal a little bit, other times we heal lots, and we just keep doing that. And once it's all healed, the next time, if they were to say the exact same thing, it just won't hit the way that it hit before.
Yes. And what's so interesting is in my work with couples over the years and just from personal observation, couples will often just keep going through the exact same patterns with each other, the same catalysts between each other, the same hurts, and they're just sort of stuck in these patterns. And what you're saying is, if we can step back and feel all there is to feel in these moments when we are triggered and there is a catalyst and it's painful, we're going to clear something. And most likely we will not call in, our soul will not call in the exact same situation again because we've cleared it. The expansion has been completed. We're good. So yep. There's just so many reasons.
We cannot experience catalyst in an area in us that is no longer distorted.
Exactly.
So whether the thing happens again or not, we're not going to feel bad about it.
Yeah, exactly. So the same situation may happen, but the energy.
And I want to just expand on it a little bit more because it's the main thing Jesus was talking about. This is the main message of my homeboy Jesus, awesome. Yeshua. Basically, all of this cycling could be just called karmic, or you could call it basically self-judgment. So the only way to dissolve karmic energy or the inertia of the putting out judgment, that it will come back, and this will continuously happen. And that's why couples will continuously cycle, because even though they may approach a resolution where they decide it's fine, they let go of it, whatever, they've still came at it with lots of judgment internally. They may not be saying the things, but internally they feel like they're in an opposition with each other. they may reach a place of equanimity a bit with it, and then the issue itself goes away for a time. But during it all, there was judgment all over the place, whether spoken or not. And this means that there's distortion in there because they're viewing the other as a separate entity other than the self. They're not viewing an aspect of self. And so forgiveness removes that. It removes all of that karmic inertia. It stops the action of the energy. So basically how that ties into what we're talking about is by forgiving. Basically forgiveness and acceptance are hand in hand. Forgiving or accepting what the other person is doing is triggering you, accepting that that's happening, accepting responsibility for it too, knowing that I generated this story in my life through my experience. Yes, other people may have done it to me and all that, but I created this with them too. And, this is part of my learning, and the other person, didn't contribute to any of that necessarily, or maybe they did, but they are helping to bring it up more because the distortions still exist in you, and if they didn't, it wouldn't feel bad. So every time it comes up, it's always positive, and forgiveness ends all karmic action, and that's how you can step out of the any negative story and literally just drop it. Is once you're ready to forgive, then it's over. The story will dissolve instantaneously once honest, true forgiveness is applied. It's as if you forgot that it even happened. A lot of things that happened to me in my life, I don't remember unless something kind of, reminds me of it. But even then, there's no feeling. It's just a thing that happened in my life. And I perceive almost all crazy events that happen to me because that's how we heal, is we go into those events. It's what they talk about, alchemy. And we're getting totally off topic now. Sorry, I'll talk forever about everything. That's so okay.
Everything you said is beautiful. And I just want to summarize here that what we're saying is when there's an uncomfortable situation between two people, and let's just say you experience an uncomfortable situation with your partner and you feel some pain, something emotional is arising in you. What we're saying is just first take some moments to go within and just see if there's something that your higher self might be pointing out to you, some other experiences this is bringing up. See if it really just all exists within you. It might. And do that first. Mm-hmm. And then if it still feels important and that there still is something that maybe needs some attention between you and your partner, by all means, talk about it. But we're just saying to go within first.
It also helps to talk about it, just like, for example, with my thing with when I feel people try to control my speech and my expression, Tassel can be, not that she has to adjust herself, but can be aware of my sensitivity to that. Yeah. And just not tiptoe or anything like that, but just be aware that when approaching that type of thing where I'm saying stuff she doesn't like, maybe being a little gentler will be a better way to serve both of us in that moment.
Just to know each other's wounds and old stories. Yeah. And I just want to say that this is a bit in contrast to what sometimes I see between couples, where if a wound does come up, there can be an immediate asking for, please don't do that again, because I feel a wound. And it goes right to trying to shape the other's behavior. And then all these rules, like, oh, I can't do that with my wife, or I can't do that with my husband. And then we create like a house of cards.
All of those
unnatural.
All those rules too, they put an energy of restriction upon the relationship.
Absolutely.
And each individual.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable.
Exactly. And I think that's partly why relationships can start to feel really constricting.
You start to feel like prisons because you're stuck in these rules.
That will set her off. I can't do this. He can't deal with that.
Right.
So we just want to like try to clear anything up in ourselves first. Look to ourselves first. We want to get away from this older illusion that you need to be a certain way so I can feel okay.
Yeah.
And this is true in any relationship we're in. It's true as parents with our children. Oh, you need to be this way so I feel okay, so I feel safe, or, in any type of relationship.
Yeah, you can think about just something like the way it might feel when your kids are going bananas in the grocery store. It can be a little embarrassing sometimes. You might want to tell them not to be the way they're being, because it's really not about what they're doing. They're not doing anything wrong. It's more about I'm uncomfortable. Everyone's staring at me. They're judging me as a mother or a father because my kids are rambunctious. It's not so much about their behavior. It's more about comfort, and most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And so, just noticing a lot of that is important.
Would it be okay at this point, Sean, if we went over some of the major points of the Namaste model and also bring up ways these somewhat differ from the more mainstream relationships?
So we're going to compare our model versus some of the more mainstream ones.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
We have about 13 points here.
Yeah, we got a bunch. And so I think this stream is sort of an introduction to what the model is and sort of why we're doing it and everything like that. And then we're going to teach the model in a course. So because we're not going to be able to get through it all in a stream or anything. Obviously, we're going to spend probably over an hour just talking about what it is.
The overview.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and some of these points we've really touched on already, but I think it's good just to summarize them all in one spot. So is it okay if I start?
Sure.
Okay. So, basically our model is that we are looking at relationship as a vehicle for our growth. We are not looking at relationship as this always comforting, super easy, like panacea for our pain.
Yeah.
And I'll say that I think my old self, that's the way I looked at relationship. Like, I want to have a man in my life so that I feel less pain. I feel loved and I feel safe, and he's like an answer to what I need or something. He's going to fill something within me that I'm missing, or that healing or something. And we're really saying this relationship may include discomfort, and I'm viewing it as a pathway for me to just further expand and integrate and just move forward in my own development, really.
Yeah. If there's no discomfort at all, there's probably not really much expansion happening. It's probably a little boring as well.
Yes.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's good for you, that's good for you, right? But it is, I think it's helpful to realize that that's really, the relationship is there for you to know yourself better, and to have beautiful experiences with another person. That's kind of
not for the other person to like heal you. Or to be what you think is missing in your life.
Yeah, we have a tendency to almost see it like a new toy, right? Like when we were children or something, when we get that new toy, that's going to be fun to play with. And it's always going to be fun, and it's a great new thing. But we're talking about a person with their own stuff going on, and our stuff going on, and sentient beings having communications. Like, stuff is gonna not always harmonize immediately, and that's okay, and actually is the point of it all, more or less.
Absolutely.
Then everything else is just sort of icing on the cake.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Do you want to take
Sure.
number 2?
So the second is embodying our God self and human self, versus most of the therapy methods are talking, or the other practices are talking primarily about human to human interaction. We're trying to add a sort of spiritual component to it, but not in a way that is dogmatic, or in a way that is, we're going to have it in a very universal, just sort of, embodying that non-judgmental, eternal light, while also honoring the human's experiences and some of the egoic upsets that come up, and discomforts, and then also some of the cravings and the, kind of inhabiting both of those, honoring both of those, not repressing anything, but holding that space of, like, I'm a divine being working with another divine being to harmonize together here. That's what we're doing here. And there is no conflict. Even though there may appear to be a conflict, God is never in conflict with himself, right? Or herself. So there's no conflict. We're just doing stuff.
The way you described it was so perfect. And sometimes you and I will talk and say, oh, my human is having a hard time with this, or my human feels jealous, or my human's uncomfortable. And we're, I think, both getting better and better at holding both perspectives almost simultaneously. I mean, the example I gave with the texting that night when I was upset, I was just solely in my human self and just sort of acting poorly. But in general, I think we're getting better at being able to almost just toggle back and forth. Or hold
and you'll say my thinking mind, or or I'll sort of make fun of my ego, like, and I'll and I'll laugh at, like, what the stuff is it's trying to get me to be afraid of and things. So there's a bunch of different ways to talk about that and approach it. But it is important that, like, when you're sharing that, when you say my human feels this, what you're saying is, I know that this is a bit of maybe a confused bit of state here, but I have to be honest, this is how I am feeling. Right? Yeah. I know that maybe there's expansion, there is expansion. That's why we're feeling that way. But we're recognizing that and speaking it in that way, so that the other person is not interpreting it as judgment, criticism, different things like that. You're sort of coming at it, being aware at least of the higher perspective. Maybe you're not seeing it fully, but you're just aware at least that there is more happening here. It's not just the feeling, Yes.
And I love this. And I think I've used these words with you, that I just want to tell you where I am at right now. Maybe I will expand here. Maybe I won't feel this way at some point in the future, but my human, this is where she's at right now with this topic. This is what's hard for her. And just so much of what also is the foundation of all of this is radical transparency, radical honesty, radical vulnerability, that if it feels safe to just share whatever is arising in your human or in any orientation that you're holding, to not be ashamed of our human, to not be ashamed of different feelings that might come up that we might be taught are embarrassing or shameful, like jealousy or anger or like lack of self-worth.
And the more spiritual we feel or get, the more, like, tied into a spiritual connection we feel and stuff, the more contrast we notice with that behavior,
Yes.
which is a really big opportunity for us to judge ourselves.
Yes.
So we have to remember, like, we're learning, like that's why it's there. Like, that's why we're doing that. Like,
the human is the piece that's helping us expand. The human part of us is what's feeling all the stuff and is uncomfortable, and that's our human is the one that's helping our soul expand.
Yeah.
So just so honoring your own internal experience, always. Yeah. Okay, point number 3 is this idea of talking about one's preferences, perhaps rather than using the word needs. And I think I'm still getting my head around this. And maybe even as we talk this out right now, I'll have some more insight. But you and I tend to mostly talk about, okay, I have this preference for how we do things, or this preference for maybe how you interact with me in a certain situation. And we tend to not use the word needs so much. I think I used the word needs a bit this week about something, but I felt wasn't sure that was the right thing to say. And I think what we're saying is, from the spiritual perspective, we are whole. We are complete on our own. All needs we can source through ourselves and our own divine connection. So it's a bit of an illusion, perhaps, to think I have a need from that another person needs to fulfill for me. It's a bit of an illusion. Although the human, can sometimes feel that way. So I want to also honor the human here. Yeah. But I think you've been tending to more use the word, I have a preference. And what that does, I feel like the word preference opens up for me that maybe I have some expansions here myself around what I think I prefer or what I think I need. And then it also, I feel, gives the other person like just more space. If you say to your partner, I need this from you, oh, that feels really like intense. That's
a lot like the prison and the constriction, the rules, right?
Yes. And there's an element to it of like, and if you don't,
it's implied.
This, then maybe I'm out.
Yeah.
It feels kind of ultimatum-y, really.
Yeah, it's an implied need. Like it implies that if it's not given, then I will have no choice but to leave.
Yeah,
right?
Because a need is like a survival thing. It's a must-have.
I must have this. So if you can't do this, then I'm not going to be here.
Yeah. So preferences is just so much lighter.
I actually, I wanted to say, and this, both words are great, but I like the word bias instead of preference. Okay. And I'll say the reason that I prefer that word. My preference is to use the word bias. But
okay.
The only reason I say this, and it's very nitpicky, but I think these nuances do get important when we're talking about polarity. Bias can be positive or negative.
Yes, right.
So bias has no implication of positivity or negativity to what is sort of the oriented desire state, or so preference implies that like it has a sort of slight implication that this is good for me. It's better for me this way.
Right.
Whereas bias is like, this is the way I'm conditioned.
Yeah.
I'm conditioned this way.
It ties into like the I don't know mind. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I prefer it this way because this way is more comfortable. Is really what preference is saying.
Yes.
And so bias to me strips the polarity out of it and just is like, this is what I know.
Yeah.
Sort of is what we're saying.
Yes. I like that a lot.
And so we're recognizing just through saying it in that way that, there's a whole bunch of different ways for me to perceive this. Yes. But my experience is this way, and this is what I've been comfortable with. It doesn't mean I can't expand. It just means, this is my bias. I seem to prefer this, but when I say prefer, it's really, I'm just saying I'm comfortable with this. And the
Yes.
rest is a bit uncertain to me.
Yes. Great point. I love it. Yeah. Awesome.
And that directly sort of conflicts with other models, which are more about, here are my needs. Here are my,
Yes. Yep. Totally. I love it.
So the next one is unconditional acceptance versus boundaries. So last night, I think I said it was fences we put up to close our heart. And it's kind of a poetic way to say it, but if we think about unconditional love and what that means, there's a couple different ways we can look at it. But in order for us to be truly unconditionally loving, then we need to be able to accept the person specifically just as they are without boundaries. So whenever we're erecting any boundary, we're saying, I don't know how to love this, so I'm closing this part of my heart for this engagement in this way. It doesn't mean I don't love this person or whatever. It just means this moment with this person, I don't love, and I don't know how to love it. I don't know how to be open to this moment and accept this moment. So any boundary of any kind is closing an aspect of the heart. It's distorting the heart in separation. In order for us to be full conduits to source or crystalline, we need to let go of all boundaries. Now, that doesn't mean that's everyone's pathway. So, Jesus opened his heart entirely and went to his death with his open heart, with no boundary at all to even to his physical death. Now, that is not a path that I would recommend, right, to anybody. And basically, there are limits that we have as to what is acceptable to us, what we can love, what we can embody and love and accept. And not all of us are going to, it's very rare for a human being to hit that level of 1,000 in the power versus force scale of full open-hearted unity. It's not normal, basically. But we can know that boundaries in and of themselves are boundaries to love. The concept of a boundary is separation, which is the opposite of love. It's fear. So we know that just intrinsically, but it doesn't mean that we must accept every single thing that ever occurs to us by everyone. It just means that in their offering, we love them. We can reject it, right? We can say, no, thank you. But we still love them. And so that's what the open heart is sort of meaning, is the boundary. And we don't try to, change their behavior. Like we empower ourselves to just remove ourselves from situations that, there are people that I love that I just don't talk to because it's a routine of stuff that I don't feel like participating in. I don't feel I'm serving them. I don't feel they're really serving me in these things either. And so we just sort of agree to disagree in the way that we're oriented. And I still care about them. I still love them, and I'm not judging them. But it's just not something I'm interested in, and that's okay. So, just boundaries are always separation. But everyone has a different tolerance, I guess, is the best way to say them, a different tolerance to what they can realistically accept in their lives and with people, relationships and things like that.
Yes. And so we're making a delineation here between relationships that may not be conscious and that could be possibly traumatic, and using one's own discernment in
Right.
those relationships. And then what we're talking about, say, between us or with those in a healthy, conscious relationship, is to make that commitment of unconditional acceptance of your partner.
Yeah.
just in the same way we were just talking about these words like needs, preferences, bias, when we unconditionally accept our partner, we give them space, right? We give them freedom.
Yeah.
Rather than telling them, oh, this is unacceptable.
The goal,
I cannot do this.
The goal should be to open and open and open and expand, not to close and close and close.
So one of the most beautiful things you've said to me when maybe I've done something that I regret, or I could see I'd rather act in a different way for the highest and best. You've said things like, you are perfect just as you are. And even if you do, you didn't say even if, you said, if this continues, even if it expands and gets more of it, that's perfect too. Like, you basically, in a way, gave me like this sort of carte blanche of my behavior, you know, within a certain, I'm sure if I was trying to kill you or something, maybe.
No, I would forgive you and I would just leave.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
so I guess what I'm saying is, you know, in general, when we just offer this unconditional acceptance from our God self, as God does to us, and we are God, God is us, it just opens up space for the person. And often what happens is they have so much space that they even more easily kind of shift into their own path of highest and best. Mm-hmm. Because they have this space without the punishment and the reprimanding and the ultimatums.
Yeah, you know, sometimes it's helpful to let people know how you're feeling when they do a thing. This is how I feel when you do this. And you're really not, it can sound judgmental. It can be interpreted as criticism. But as long as it's said in a way of like, sort of like how we said earlier, this is my human, it can be just sort of like, I'm not telling you not to do it. You can keep doing it. In fact, please continue if this is what you wish to do. I'm just saying that I noticed that this was hard for me, and here are the reasons I found it hard. And then also maybe that person can help you with some of these reasons and help clarify some of the things, right? And that's sort of what the communication's about, is like, you know, and then maybe you're totally fine with it. You're like, oh, I wasn't seeing the situation properly at all. I was seeing this other thing. And now you truly maybe prefer them to continue that behavior, right? So,
yeah, or it could be that, and I'm just so glad you brought this up, because yes, of course, we want to express honestly our feelings about what we experience with the other person, especially after we've run it through our own inner work first. Mm-hmm. And sometimes this is great feedback for the other person. Sometimes they're just unaware of, oh, when I do this,
right,
a person could feel this way. So who knows what might happen.
Today you reminded me about the channeling, and you know, like that was really helpful for me, because I you know, but it triggered me though, because I think I was sitting down to draw.
Yeah.
Right. And so in that moment though, I could have just reacted and been like, why are you telling me what to do? Blah, blah, blah. Right. I could have done that. Because I did get triggered for just a moment, and I didn't even mention it because it wasn't important, but I'm bringing it up now because with our relationship, there are these sort of things where this is the type of thing where I often say, if you don't mind, please do remind me about things, because I can get very spacey and things like that. And but even in that, I've like asked her to do this behavior that I actually don't really like that much, right? I don't really like to be reminded. But like truly, I don't enjoy it that much. It's uncomfortable, but I do know it's for highest and best, or like it's good for me, as long as it's not burdensome to the other person and stuff like that. It does help me. So it's a way for me to like. I think the reason I'm saying this is because I'm just trying to illustrate how important it is to talk about it, and how contextual it is between people, and how like sometimes you'll have behaviors like you remind me of stuff, and it seems to be a behavior that you're very good at and almost comes quite naturally to you. And it triggers me a bit when you do it, but I still see the value in it, type thing. And my goal is to get to a place where you don't need to remind me.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting, because I was just going to share that my truth is I don't
want
really
to
want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's something I think we still both need to expand on.
Yeah.
I'm used to playing that role in relationship. And I think there's probably some shift for both of us there.
Oh, I'm sure of it. You shouldn't need to remind me of things.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Okay, awesome. So the next point number 5, and we've touched on this quite a bit already, is that in our Namaste model, there is a recognition, an awareness, and I would say an honoring of there will be discomfort in the relationship. And that there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. And that is the path. That means you're out of your comfort zone. If you're in discomfort, you're not in your comfort zone. Yeah. And it could mean that something, isn't highest and best and needs to shift. It could mean that, or it could mean that there's an expansion here for you. So I just know in my life, maybe more so before I awakened, I think I thought there's something wrong in me feeling pain. The situation needs to be fixed. If I'm feeling pain, there must be something wrong with the situation. And so in this model, we're like, no, if you're feeling pain, could be something needs to be shifted, or it could be that there's something here for you to clear, integrate, and expand on. And I would say in my experience with more mainstream relational models, there's more of a focus on immediately shutting down the emotional pain, immediately applying some form of a Band-Aid, perhaps, to just not have the emotional pain. So yeah, we really honor the alchemy, the transformation that emotional pain can take us on.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what you want to do. We're at 1 hour and 11 minutes. Yeah. We still have a bunch of points, like 12 or 6 or 7 more. Yeah. Maybe we should
do a part 2 or something?
I think maybe we should do a part 2. Okay. Yeah, because we have a lot more to talk about, and and that's not even the course itself. So we'll consider how to do this, but maybe we'll do a part 2.
Maybe for Monday we could do a part 2.
We could do something on Monday. Yeah, it might be good, especially for those who are in Patreon and are going to get the course in about a week and a bit.
Yep. Yeah.
And that course will be free, and then we'll release it later for everyone else. But I think a lot of this stuff is sort of preliminary. We want to talk about this to get the right mindset coming into the course. Otherwise, there's too much foundational stuff to go over. So I think even people that buy the course will probably send them these videos to watch. So because
so much of this has been such new learning for me over this past year. It's all been just brand new learnings in all of this.
Yeah. And I'd like to say too, we're not familiar, I don't think, with any methods or techniques or that go into this detail in this way. If anyone has any that they think line up with this, I would love to see them in parallel to what we're offering. It would help us probably construct a better system for what we are going to teach. So, and also to make sure that, if other people are teaching it, we can make sure that if we're using ideas they've already shared and stuff, that we can, reference those and things like that. But primarily trying to make it as good as possible. And I haven't seen anything like this, but I'm sure Tassel as well would be very curious if there's anything that anyone's read that are approaching things in this way. And that'll help us sort of formulate it all.
Yes. Yeah. So you basically said it, but I'll repeat it, that in our Patreon community next week, we will be offering a full-blown course on the Namaste Method, and we'd love for you to join us. It's pretty financially reasonable to join our Patreon community. There's a description or a link below in the video description. And if you liked this video, we'd so appreciate considering subscribing to our channel.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So much love to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.